When I was a kid, I thought if I could control things, that I'd be safe. But then when the addiction came, I wouldn't admit it, that I had lost control. Of course, if we didn't lose control, we wouldn't be addicted.
So I was just pretty much a social drinker, and it was accepted in the circles that I ran in. So I pretty much had control, I thought.
I was trying to control then that thing that I thought defined who I was, but in actuality it was controlling me.
Hello, I'm Laverne Tripp, and welcome to Born to Be Free, because that is the purpose we were born. You might say, well, you know what, I'm not free. But in the next few minutes, you're going to see some people that have gotten free and are helping others, and I know you want that to happen. I think our biggest problem, I know mine was, I really felt like I could stop drinking, stop drugging, stop lying, stop doing all the things I was doing. But the truth is, I couldn't. And finally, I came to realize my life was totally out of control, and I had no power whatsoever over it. But there is a solution. You're going to hear about the problem today, but stay with us because you will get the solution, because we were born to be free.
Let's get going on the first issue that we'll be dealing with, control. In dealing with control, one of the issues of control is denial. Denial not only that you're in trouble, but that other people know you're in trouble. Looking at control issues, talk to me a little bit about control. Mark?
I've been given by God many talents, and I think that enabled me to lead a life where I presented the illusion of having control. And frequently I would say, I can handle this. I believe that stood to be my epitaph. But in fact, as more and more things got out of control, I tried fiercely to get control over whatever I could. And one of the things that I did is I controlled other people. And I tried to control my family, my kids, making life with me very, very difficult. And as you correctly point out, I think that many others knew that I had a problem and was heading down a bad course long before I had knowledge of that. I just couldn't admit that I was lying to myself.
Of course, I'm a recovering gambling addict. I used to try external means of control. I go lock my credit cards in the trunk of the car and take in like $300 or $400 to gamble with. Swear I would not go back. Of course, I did. I would go back, and finally I would just take all my credit cards and take them on in. But when I was a kid, I thought if I could control things, that I'd be safe. But then when the addiction came, I wouldn't admit it, that I had lost control. Of course, if we didn't lose control, we wouldn't be addicted.
My drug of choice was alcohol and crack cocaine and marijuana, and I knew I had a problem, so what I would do sometimes is give my money to friends and relatives and ask them to hold it for me so I wouldn't spend it all. Then I'd come back to them later on after, the high would kick in or the drugs would kick in and ask them for the money back. And they say, well, you told us not to give this to you. And then I would use anger and I would use scare tactics to get the money back. And I would say, listen, that's my money. You give it back to me, or me and you going at it. And I would just manipulate and use anger and stuff to intimidate them. And that was a form of control I did, just lying to myself.
I developed very early in life the belief that life was threatening, people were dangerous, and so if I didn't control the environment, something terrible would happen to me. And so I would also try to control the people around me, control the situation, plan everything, have everything pretty much under my thumb in every area of life. And of course, you try that, you can't really succeed, not fully. We're not that much in control. And so to escape the terror of a life that would at times seem out of control, I found a good deal of control in sexual fantasy. the sort of dark magic of pornography, anonymous sexual encounters. These were areas where you could manipulate the environment perfectly. In a sexual fantasy, you know, you're the producer, the director, the leading man, you're in complete charge of the environment. So for me, I think my sexually addictive behavior was a way of warding off my terror of the real world, which I could never quite control to my satisfaction, and so I could retreat into the shadowlands where I was completely in control.
My experience was disordered eating and chronic dieting, and I honestly would get so frustrated with people when they would say, oh, it's just an issue of control. I really didn't feel that it was, and it wasn't until I was, after 10 years of that, beginning to walk out of it, that I began to realize how much of my life had become absolutely controlled by my fear, like you said, of what other people thought. And so the more I could see that, there was this truth one day that God just put in my mind that said that which defines you controls you. And for me, it was the way that I looked, I felt defined who I was. And so I was trying to control then that thing that I thought defined who I was, but in actuality it was controlling me. And so now with that paradigm shift in my thinking, it helps me look at those kinds of issues a lot more healthily.
Control was very much a part of my life. I was very manipulative, and I used control in my relationships with my family members to kind of keep them off guard, to keep them from approaching me from any, and they did not like confrontation, so of course I used that through anger. Nobody would directly come to me and challenge me on anything. And I also tried to manage my life. I was a functioning addict for such a long time that I figured if I paid the bills and you can't say anything because I don't have money for food, or I don't have money for clothing or anything extra, because I'm at least doing this portion, you know. And so that was, I tried to control those around me by things like that. And I also, even in my addiction, I can remember when I hit bottom, I would pray and thank God that I was broke, that I had no money, because that was the only way that I wouldn't use. I can remember growing up with a very a comical story of how when I was 3 years old, my mom was given permission by my doctor to give me half a bottle of beer a day. It'll relax her, it'll help her go to sleep. And I grew up with that seed planted, knowing that I had developed a taste for beer at a very early age. Well, I got into the habit of stealing them. I knew where the alcohol was kept in the home. My family didn't touch it until the weekends, so they didn't know that I was sneaking beer. A lot of anger and just a lot of emotions. Of course, we're talking about when I was a preteen, so, you know, hormones are raging, and there's a lot of things that I didn't want to deal with. I didn't think it was fair that I had to, and it numbed that for me. The prescription drugs helped, and the over-the-counter drugs, they helped. Of course, I didn't understand that the mood swings, the up and downs were coming from that at that time. As I progressed, once I felt like I needed an outlet, and I did allow myself to start hanging out with my friends, the use there was not to numb my mind, but it was to help me to relax, to become accepted socially. I relaxed. Someone shared marijuana with me, and I relaxed and I laughed, and it became an okay thing for me. Not until I was 18 did I try cocaine. Well, that was a whole other level. At this point in my life, I still felt that I was controlling drugs and alcohol in my life. One, I wasn't spending an exorbitant amount of money on it like I had seen some people do. Two, I wasn't drunk and destroying relationships and order in my home or within the community. I understood things like marijuana was a gateway drug, but I was managing the marijuana. I didn't see me shooting any heroin, or I didn't see me doing any other types of drugs, so I was just pretty much a social drinker, and it was accepted in the circles that I ran in. So I pretty much had control, I thought. The drugs and alcohol that I've been using, the powder cocaine, the marijuana, and the alcohol were not enough. And I began experimenting with a new drug, and it was crack cocaine. Nobody would confront my addiction. Nobody would, because then I would blow up at them, and how dare you, after the life that I've had. And I have felt a desire to quit. My lowest of my low was when I prayed to God and told him, thank you that I had no more money to spend, because that was the only way I could be functioning and sober. I checked myself into a drug and alcohol program recommended to me by my brother-in-law, who was going to go there to train, and it is called Penile Drug and Alcohol Treatment Facility, and it's located in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. And I came into treatment, and they were really able to help me to see that it hadn't, while things like environment had contributed to my addiction, and things like circumstance and crisis had contributed, that they were not the core issue, but that it was myself. I thank God for the year that I had. It was an opportunity to heal and to see a pattern of behavior that I had exhibited for years. I entered into treatment in my 30s. I had been addicted to alcohol and drugs since I was 7 years old, and I had begun to use it then. It's a lot of years. It takes more than a few weeks, and it took more than just a secular program, but I needed God in my heart and my life, to the point where I would surrender all. You know, I'm in control of things through Christ, and money couldn't do it for me. Power can't do it for me. Relationships can't do it for me. God has done that for me.
Have you ever felt like that you could do better if you would just try harder? I know with me, I really felt like in my life, in my struggles, in my addiction, that if I would just try harder, I could accomplish whatever I wanted to accomplish. Because my belief was, no matter what I want to do, I can do it. Well, that worked for a while, it seemed like. But when my addiction got out of control, I came to the place that I realized I don't have any power. And I'll tell you how that happened. After I had surrendered my life to Christ, made a commitment to Him, the very next day, I got in my car, started to town, and instead of going to town, I started to the drug dealer's house. To make a long story short, I got high. The same thing happened the next day. After I got high the second day, I got a bottle of sleeping pills, a glass of water, and I was going to take my life because I felt like I was such a failure. Here I had committed my life to God, determined to live for Him from this day on, and the very next day got high again. I felt like it was because I was a weak person, but the truth is I didn't have any power. And just before I took my life, the telephone rang. It was a guy that I had sung with. He had gave his heart to Jesus like a year before, and he called. And he asked me, he said, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm fine." You know, we lie about our problems a lot. We don't want to admit it, especially that we're powerless and that our life is unmanageable. Knowing all we do about God and His love for us, and yet continue to do things that we know He don't want us to do, and that's destructive. And when I told him I'm fine, he said, "Well, I don't understand." He said, "I was down here praying, and the Lord told me to call you." God always sends just the right person at just the right time to say just the right thing. He knew what I needed to hear, but I knew I had to get honest. And I told him, I said, I gave my heart to Jesus Sunday. This was like on Tuesday. And he said, "Well, praise God." I said, "No, wait a minute." I said, "I got high yesterday. I got high today." I said, "What's wrong with me?" Other people give their heart to God. They talk about how victorious they are, how happy they are, how much peace they have. And I said, I can't. He said, "Hold it." He said, "Don't you know you don't have any power over alcohol or drugs? Don't you know you don't have any power over the flesh, the world, the devil?" He says, "As a matter of fact, you don't have any power over anything. Your life is totally unmanageable." It's the first time I'd ever heard that. It made me very angry. He said, "Why don't you just turn the devil over to your Father and ask Him to cover you with the blood of Jesus?" I hung the phone up. I got on my knees. I said, "God, I don't have any power over the devil. I want to do the right thing, but I can't. And I admit I am totally powerless. My life is totally out of control. I turn Him over to you. Will you cover me with the blood of Jesus?" And when I said that, it was like somebody wrapped a blanket around me, and I knew I'd found the key to overcoming. And that was admitting my powerless, trusting in His power, and surrendering to His will. Don't feel bad about falling and stumbling. We don't have the power to live it, but God has, and He'll give it to you if you ask Him. So do it now.
Now, I was a minister, and still am, by the way. And my addiction was to religion. And people say, oh, how great. Well, I thought so until the Lord one day just kind of nailed me and said, no, you're going about this all wrong. Control was an issue. You know, ministers are supposed to be in control. In treatment, they have what they call stinking thinking. Your best thinking got you broke. Your best thinking got you on drugs. What was your best thinking?
Well, I told myself basically that everything on the surface looked good. Because I kept anyone from confronting me on those issues, then I told myself that I was functioning okay. If I was doing half of what needed to be done in the home, then nobody could complain about me spending a little bit of money on myself, that I had earned it, that I deserved it. The food's a little low because I went a little overboard this time, but I'm gonna make up for it because I'm still working or I have some type of income coming in. And I just reasoned myself to keep myself from going insane. This was all internally, this was all by myself, while I put on this facade that everything was okay in my home. And yeah, it was just stinking thinking.
But it's not always as obvious as that either. Like for mine, it was very much everyone around me thought I had it all together too. I mean, really things were going great. I had a very good career, a loving husband, looked similar to how I look now. So for me, it was a much less obvious thing. It almost makes me think that if it could have been more obvious, I would have been quicker to see the light of what was going on in my life. But for me, it was a very gray area. So I think the enemy will get us any way that we are susceptible to. And for a lot of us, it's much more gray areas than others.
One night I pulled into a rest stop in Mississippi on the way home, and I really wanted to kill myself, and I had a .357 Magnum in the glove compartment. And you know, a lot of times we do that in self-pity, we addicts. I'm just gonna kill myself then. You know, that's not true. But this night it was really true. And I unlocked the glove compartment, and I made up my mind I was gonna pull the gun out and just shoot myself, you know, right in the head, and that's it. And I reached in there and the gun wasn't in there. And it scared me because I knew I was close, and I started shaking and crying. And then I realized my wife must have taken it out. So I rushed home to Mobile to tell her. I woke her up and I said, Karen, God bless you, you saved my life, you saved my life. You know, you took the gun out, you must have known I was gonna kill myself. She said, oh, Johnny. She said, I didn't take the gun out to save your life, I took it out to sell it so they wouldn't turn our lights off.
You know, after my life had come unraveled and I was heading for treatment, I was convinced I was just going to go there for a short while, get a little bit better, and come right back. And when it turned out that, you know, that wasn't the case, you know, I started saying, you know, poor me, poor me. Yeah, well, you know, how come they don't see that I stopped doing all the bad stuff? You know, why can't I be driven right back to where I was? And that state of being a victim just befell me and covered me with shame. And you know, I was feeling pretty bad then. But that's more stinking thinking, because I found that my disordered perceptions were such that, you know, I was either better than everybody else or worse than everybody else. And there was no time that I spent in the middle. No time at all.
Absolutely.
One of the other things you say to yourself when you are a drug addict or alcoholic is, this is the last time. God, this is my last time. After this, God, I promise you, I'm coming to you. I'm going to live saved, sanctified, and filled with the Holy Ghost. I'm not going to do it no more. God, just give me one last chance. I was sharing with Dr. Fisher here that I would tell God, I would be praying while I would be hitting the crack pipe. And I would say, Lord, don't let me die in this sin. Don't let me die while I'm hitting this crack pipe. This is my last time. I'm going to give my life to you. I'm going to change. I know I got perverted ways. I know I'm lustful. I know I'm crazy. I know I got anger problems, but this is my last time, God. I promise you, I'm coming home. I know I need to be in the church. I was brought up in the church. And you would lie to yourself, this is the last time.
And you know, Tiny, every time I would say that, within 24 hours, I would find a justification for doing it just one more time. I think that was my stinking thinking, was entitlement. Well, after all, It's my body, it's my pleasure, life is so hard, people don't understand me. There are all these reasons why I'm entitled at least one more time to indulge. So my cycle was always one of beginning with entitlement. And then having indulged, then going the other extreme saying, oh, this is so awful, I'm so terrible, God, that's the last time I will ever do it. And within 24 hours, I'd find one more reason why I was entitled to do it at least one more time.
One of the practices of the Oxford group that the 12 steps came from, their first cardinal practice was absolute surrender to the will of God.
In Utica, at the age of 17, you had to be 18 to drink, and I passed for 18, so I was bellied up to the bar with the rest of them very quickly. And it wasn't too long until the bottle that I thought I held was holding me. My life quickly changed to a lot of problems, trouble. We had a pretty popular band, and let's just say if there were 400 people that came and went during the night, and 10% of them bought me a drink, and they did. There were double bourbons and a beer. I probably drank 2/5 a night at least. I can't imagine how I could ever have done that, but I did. And I think the amphetamines and the diet pills helped keep me going. I would be horribly, deathly sick on Monday. I'd start feeling a little bit like myself on Tuesday. Wednesday was probably the one day of the week that I felt like a person. And I was back at it on Thursday. I actually thought that I was going to prove I could handle it before I'd give it up. But I was stubborn. And I just didn't want to give it up. I didn't want to give it up. I wanted to conquer it. And I finally came to the place where I realized that was not going to happen. It was going to kill me. It was going to reap more destruction to my family and my life than it already had. But after the crisis was over, I was back at it. It's very, very, very compelling. So I told Grace on Christmas Eve, I said, I'm going to go get one drink. I'm just going to, just one, I'll be right back. She begged me not to go, but I left. And to make a long story short, that one drink diluted the judgment my diluted judgment was diluted more to have another one, then another, and another. And I came back home a drunken, staggering mess. And when she left me in the door, she just looked at me, and I went straight to the gun cabinet and got a .38. I cocked the gun, pointed it to my heart, and Grace begged me to give her that gun. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. And she seen I was serious, and she left the room, and I sat and I tried to pull that trigger. It was like it was froze or welded to the frame. And in the silence, as I sat there in that bed between death and hell, she came back in the room and she said, Jack, give me the gun. And I tried to fumble with it and uncock it, and it went off. And it went through my side and out my back. Left a hole as big as a silver dollar out my back, and I fell back on the bed. And I sat up, stood up, blood running everywhere, down all over my shoes and the rug. And I walked into the living room, to the presence of my children, who had just finished putting the Christmas tree up. And my son said, I know the phone number, Daddy, I'll call the ambulance. And he called, and here came the red lights and the white coats and the gurney and the whole bunch, and took their drunken, stumbling, suicidal father out the door to the hospital. So I made my mind up that I would stay sober for at least a week. So when I went back to church, that it wouldn't be the result of some guilt feeling or some hangover or something, that I'd know exactly what I was doing. And that's what I did. On October 21st, 1977, the preacher said, if you want to know what God's will for your life is, report for duty. I reported for duty. I stumbled over some feet getting out that aisle and going up to the altar, but I poured myself at the feet of Jesus, and he poured his life into me. And he's changed me. He gave me what I was after, and that's freedom. I haven't had a drink since then. It's been 25 years. It'll be 25 years on the 21st of August. But life still has challenges and problems, but they're the right kind.
Well, for the past few minutes, we have been listening to some people that know what it is to hurt. But we've also heard the good part. You see, God takes bad things and turns them into good if we recognize that without his help, we can't make it. I know what it is to be powerless. I know what it is to be out of control. Maybe you do too. None of us want to admit that. We feel like we can do anything we want to do. But the truth is, every one of us reach places in our life where there is no solution except God's help. I just want to pray for you today, and I want you to pray for me, that we can continue to realize we can't do it. So if we can't do it and our life is out of control, how do we get it? That's why it's important you stay tuned to all the episodes of Born to Be Free, because the first step is so important, because if we don't realize that we're totally powerless and our life is unmanageable, we're not going to be able to enjoy a life of happy, joyous, and free living. So I just pray today, right now, I ask the Father to help you and to me to realize we're totally powerless and our life is unmanageable. If we realize that, then we have to seek for more help. And the good news is, I know that help is available. Trust me, I've been through it. You've heard others talk about going through it. It's important that you get the little offer we're going to make in just a few moments too, because it will help you to make it through, because you were born to be free.
Have you been inspired to start your journey to recovery? Please call our toll-free number, 888-665-4483, and our prayer partners can help you find a group in your area. Or you can visit our website at www.ctvn.org and click on the Born to Be Free link. There you can search our online database of recovery groups near you. When you call or visit our website, request your free copy of the self-help booklet, Your Dynamic Journey to Freedom. In it, you'll find an outline of the recovery process featured in this series. So take that first step on your journey to freedom by contacting us, finding a local recovery group, and getting your free copy of this inspiring booklet. Call now, because you were born to be free.
I had 5 or 6 auto accidents where cars were totaled, divorced twice, broken relationships, angry kids, lost businesses, bankruptcy. All of those issues of life were marker points what God was saying, pay attention.
I've been stabbed, I've been shot at, big target, I was missed, close range. God would get me out of situations, and I just knew He was real.
God became intimate to me. We have an intimate relationship today.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. I once was bound, but now I'm free.
There were times I was petrified, but I was stubborn. And I just didn't want to give it up. I didn't want to give it up. I wanted to conquer it. And I finally came to the place where I realized that was not going to happen. It was going to kill me. It was going to reap more destruction to my family and my life than it already had. And I'm convinced it was the prayers